let's head to Birmingham. I know neither of us were there. I know neither of us got to watch it in full live because of our travel. But this was something that I got to watch a little bit on the plane. But this was a very, very special night. Of course, this week and this game was going to be about Willie Mays anyway. It really ended up being an incredibly emotional and powerful tribute to his life, his career, his experience at Rickwood Field. So I guess I'll just start with that obvious part, right? I mean, having his son there, having Barry Bonds there, it was really a pretty remarkable thing to watch even. And I'm sure in person it was all the more powerful.
Now, Willie passed away this week at the age of 93, but, talking to people about Rickwood and its connection to Willie, like he was considering trying to come as recently as like a week, 2 weeks ago. Right. And I think that's what makes it all the more heavy and all the more shocking and all the more emotional, right? Is Willie Mays, for everybody, basically everybody who is alive and cares about baseball, has always been there, right? He has been omnipresent even after his playing career was over. But during his playing career, I mean, this guy played for 23 seasons. He was in every single All-Star game. And so for a lot of people, when you turned on the television and you watched baseball, like Willie Mays was a fundamental part of that. And as the oldest living Hall of Famer, he was like we didn't hear from him a lot, but you knew he was there. And, I think it's incredibly powerful that, there was a chance if he had made it to yesterday and he had the strength, he absolutely would have been there. He really, truly did want to be there. What's interesting about this particular game, I actually want to zoom out and disconnect the Negro League specific Rickwood aspects of it for just a quick second. Sure. And just chat about the idea of these special event games.
The jewel events, as
the jewel events.
Them. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Again, you know how much I love Rob Manfred. This is one of the best things that MLB has done under his tenure. I'm not talking about Rickwood specifically or the Field of Dreams, but taking the show on the road, right? Yep. I saw a couple tweets from Randy Jazirli about how MLB's most unique asset as a product is actually the number of games it has, right? We play 162 as a sport. We play 81 and 81. That means teams can relatively afford to do a bunch of games in interesting places. The NFL is a little bit different. They play 17 games now. I know they do the London stuff, but I think Randy's spot on. I think the more of these, the better. Anything to break up the flow, the relative monotony of an MLB season, to bring this sport to new places and new people is an unbelievably simple, yet complicated logistically, way to grow the game.
Yeah. And I think it is, in some ways, it's of course bringing it to places where they have not previously had a Major League Baseball game. And that's cool. But to me, it's also just the novelty of it. There is a charm in the very basic sense, and we've talked about attending the Little League Classic before, of Major League Baseball in a field without an upper deck. Like when you see Major League Baseball being played and the camera pans and it's just one level of seats, bingo. That was exactly, yes, that was the other thing I was going to say. And this is another thing, particularly in Williamsport, beyond the outfield wall is literally just like a house. Like there's like the neighborhood is right there. I don't think that dynamic was quite in play here in Rickwood, but to just have the highest level of our sport appearing in these places that means so much, but which I think brings us back to this one in particular, right? Because this one carried so much more weight for so many reasons than anything else that we have seen before for any of these other events, right? Sure, it's cool to play a game in the cornfield. We obviously love playing a game in Williamsport in front of a bunch of little leaguers. There have been other, special events and going to different countries. Those are all good, and I hope we continue to push for those, right? But like this event in this place that means so much to so many people for very good reasons and for very bad reasons, which we can get into, I think was especially powerful, and I think why MLB does deserve credit for making this happen and making this possible.
Right, and that's the balance, right? Is not congratulating MLB, right, but like giving MLB a little bit of credit for doing this type of game while also acknowledging all the things that MLB has done in its past to create the need for the Negro Leagues in the first place, sure. Right? Now, I understand it's not like Rob Manfred did that, right? But this is, I really want to emphasize this. This is not a story that's over, right? Black baseball players are about, the percentage of players in the major leagues is much lower than it was 25, 30 years ago. That has been well documented. We saw that on the field last night with only one Black American player, Mason Wynn, appearing in the game. That, like that in and of itself is a unmissable reminder that we are not done here, right? What I like about putting the game in Birmingham is that it forced MLB and it forced Fox on the broadcast and it forced everybody, by everybody I mean like white people, to reckon with the two sides of what this is. You cannot do a Negro League specific game without jumping headlong into the inequality and the horrors of racism in the South, right? It's unavoidable. And I think anytime that can be on a national stage in front of a national audience on Fox, that is a positive development.
Yeah.
Right. And so I like, as an educational experience, like I really enjoyed a lot of that aspect, and all the stories that have come out of having this event have been nothing but good in terms of like learning more about what the Negro Leagues was.
100%. And the two parts about that from the standpoint that you're referring to is particularly challenging, but also crucial. And then I'm going to give one that's a little bit more positive, but in a similar sense, is of course the clip of Reggie Jackson talking on the pregame show with Derek Jeter, with the desk, right, with Kevin Burkhardt and David Ortiz and all them, right, talking about his experience playing in Birmingham in the minor leagues. This is something that is in Reggie Jackson's very long, incredible career. This was the very early stages of his rise to stardom, and that was in the face of horrific racism and him explaining what it was like to be living and playing baseball as a high profile, Black athlete at that time is horrible and horrifying. But it's important, and that's why playing a game in Birmingham is so important and so valuable. There's no ducking it, right? You can't pretend like that's part of the story. Not only is it part of the story, it is the story. I mean, that's the whole point. And so while now, of course, in 2024, while there's clearly still work to do in a baseball context, in a society context, of course, there is a lot to be uplifted by and to be empowered by and to be excited by and to be inspired by with the people on the field, and how far a lot of these have come, and to see players that played on the Birmingham Black Barons get to attend this game is so incredible. But that is why it's so important to have to play a game here. You can't duck any of it. And for Reggie to be willing to share those experiences was obviously very powerful.
I mean, the pain in the stories he told was still raw.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And a lot of time has passed, and also no time has passed. Right? This is relatively not that long ago. I saw someone tweet, like, Reggie Jackson had teammates who played with Albert Pujols.
Right.
This is more recent than we think. And I think what I appreciated most about what Reggie said is how blunt it was. Like, he went on national TV and dropped a hard R. Like, you don't see that, really. You know what I mean? And that is something that made me, as a white person, like, uncomfortable in a positive way. And I understand that it's not about me and like us. Like, I get that. But I'm saying, like, the way that Reggie talked is like, you cannot avoid it, right? I don't want to say performance, but like his comments ensured that this would not be a bland, whitewashed celebration of nostalgia, right? Because you cannot do nostalgia here. It's like, I think I mentioned this before, the Taylor Swift lyric, like, I wish we could go back to the 1880s without the racism. Like, you can't do that. This is part of the fabric of baseball history, for worse, right? For worse. And I really appreciated the bluntness with which Reggie communicated his feelings. And I'm very thankful that that we got to witness something like that.